Close your eyes for a moment if you haven't already. Take a slow breath in. Hold it. Now let it go. Good. Tonight we're going to take a journey together into one of the most remarkable and recently discovered systems in your body. A system that, quite literally, is working hardest when you're doing nothing whatsoever. If you're enjoying these explorations into the hidden architecture of being human, I'd love it if you subscribed. And I'm curious, where in the world are you listening tonight? Are you in a quiet bedroom in Toronto, perhaps? Or tucked into a small flat in Manchester? Maybe you're in Auckland, or Sao Paulo, or somewhere I've never been. Wherever you are, you're here now, and that's what matters. We're going to talk about the glymphatic system. Doesn't the name itself sound like a mistake? It's not lymphatic, it's glymphatic. And there's a reason for that strange thing, which we'll find out soon enough. This system is like the night shift maintenance crew for your brain. It works all night while you sleep to get rid of the metabolic waste that builds up during the day. Your brain is like a busy city during the day. Neurons fire, thoughts come to mind, memories are stored, and choices are made. That much activity makes trash. Proteins don't fold correctly. Byproducts of metabolism build up. If you want to, cellular waste. Your brain doesn't have a normal lymphatic system to get rid of this junk, unlike all of your other organs. Scientists have been curious about how the brain stays clean for a long time. It turns out that the answer was right in front of us, just waiting for the right questions and the right technology. Let me show you a picture. Think of your brain as a sponge. It's not a perfect analogy, but bear with me. There are billions of tiny chambers and channels in this sponge, making it very complicated. Now picture that sponge in a bowl of liquid. That sponge gets bigger and bigger during the day because it is busy. The rooms are full and the hallways are narrow. But when you fall asleep at night, something amazing happens. The sponge gets a little smaller. The cells do get smaller, but not by a lot, about 20%, and in that little space, things get bigger. The channels get bigger. Cerebrospinal fluid, which surrounds your brain, starts to move more freely through these newly opened corridors. This flushes away the waste that built up during the day. It wasn't until 2012 that this process was officially recognized. Yes, 2012. Not 1912, not even 1992. A little more than 10 years ago. Maiken Nedergaard, a researcher at the University of Rochester, made the discovery. By doing this, she gave us a whole new way to think about why we sleep. Before this, it was mostly a mystery how the brain cleaned itself. We knew that trash had to go somewhere. We knew that sleep was important, but the real physical link between the two was still hard to find. Nedergaard called it the glymphatic system, which is a mix of the words glia, which are the brain's support cells, and lymphatic, because this system works like the lymphatic system in the rest of your body. Let's take our time and put this together piece by piece. We need to talk about cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF, first. This clear, colourless fluid surrounds your brain and spinal cord. You make about half a litre of it every day, and it keeps getting new. CSF protects your brain from physical damage by acting as a cushion. It also brings in nutrients and gets rid of waste. For a long time, though, scientists thought that CSF just moved around on its own, with maybe some passive diffusion happening here and there. Nedergaard found something much more beautiful and active than that. She learned that CSF doesn't just slosh around, it flows with a purpose through certain pathways, pushed by pressure differences and helped by supportive glial cells. This is where things get interesting. Your brain is only about 2% of your body weight, but it uses about 20% of your energy. All that metabolic activity leaves behind waste, like adenosine, lactate, amyloid beta proteins, tau proteins, and other cellular debris. Some of this waste is not harmful. Some people think that if you let them build up, they can cause neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. Your muscles and liver are not protected by bones and membranes like your brain is. It doesn't have the luxury of a normal waste removal system with lymph vessels running through its tissue. So evolution, in its endless creativity, made something new. The glymphatic system uses small spaces called perivascular spaces that are found around blood vessels in the brain. Picture every blood vessel in your brain with a sleeve on it and a small space between the sleeve and the wall of the vessel. These spaces make channels, or highways, that CSF can flow through. These highways get wider when you sleep, which is when your brain cells shrink a little. Fresh CSF flows into the brain through arteries and into the interstitial space, which is the space between brain cells that is filled with fluid. Like a river collecting silt, this new fluid mixes with the interstitial fluid and picks up waste. Then this dirty fluid, which is full of cellular waste, flows out through the veins and into the lymphatic vessels in the neck, where it can be properly processed and removed from the body. Astrocytes and other glial cells are the unsung heroes of this process. Astrocytes are star-shaped cells with long arms that wrap around blood vessels. They have water channels called aquaporin 4, or AQP4 for short, all over them. You can think of these channels as the locks in a canal system that control the flow of water. The AQP4 channels make it easier for CSF to move, which helps it get deeper into brain tissue. The glymphatic system slows down when these channels don't work right. Trash builds up. Over time, the effects can be very bad. Let's talk about why this is important to you right now, while you're lying in bed or sitting in a quiet room. During sleep, the glymphatic system works the hardest. Not just any sleep, but especially during REM sleep and deep, slow-wave sleep. Research employing imaging technology has demonstrated a significant increase in the flow of cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, through the brain during states of unconsciousness. The system works at about 10% of its full capacity during the day, but when you go to sleep, it goes full power. Your brain cells get smaller, the channels open, and the cleaning really starts. This is one of the most convincing reasons why not getting enough sleep is bad for you. You're not just tired because your neurons need to rest. You're also building up metabolic waste that would have been cleared away at night. Let me give you an example that might make sense. Imagine a kitchen in a restaurant. During service, the kitchen is a mess. Orders come in, pans clang, steam rises, and plates go out. There is a lot of food waste. Counters can get dirty. But the kitchen keeps working because the focus is on getting the job done. After the last customer leaves and the restaurant closes, the night crew comes in. They clean the floors, throw away the trash, and disinfect everything. The kitchen would get worse and worse if it weren't cleaned every night. There would be a lot of health code violations. In the end, the whole thing would fail. That kitchen is your brain, and your night crew is asleep. Studies have shown that people who don't get enough sleep often have lower glymphatic clearance. The waste products that should be flushed away stay behind instead. Amyloid beta, a protein fragment associated with Alzheimer's disease, constitutes one such waste product. Neurons make amyloid beta as a normal byproduct of their activity while they are awake. The glymphatic system clears it away every night if you get enough sleep. But if you don't get enough sleep, like if you don't get enough sleep every night, or your sleep quality is bad, that amyloid beta starts to build up. This build-up may help make the plaques that are found in the brains of people with Alzheimer's over the years and decades. This doesn't mean that you will get Alzheimer's after just one bad night of sleep. There are a lot of things that can cause dementia, and the relationship is complicated. But it does imply that regular restorative sleep is among the most effective preventive strategies available to you. The discovery of the glymphatic system has also helped us understand why the way we sleep might be important. Some studies on rats have shown that sleeping on your side may be better for clearing out the glymphatic system than sleeping on your back or stomach. We don't fully understand how it works in people yet, and the effect might not be very strong. But it's interesting to think that even little things about how we sleep might affect how well our brains clean themselves. I find it strangely comforting to think that something as simple as rolling over might help my brain's maintenance crew a little bit. Let's take a moment to think about how long it took to make this discovery. For most of history, people didn't know what sleep was. People in the past thought of it as a small death, a way to practice dying every day. Philosophers argued about what it was for. Neuroscience taught us about circadian rhythms, sleep stages, and how hormones like melatonin work. We learned about REM sleep and how it relates to dreaming. But the idea that sleep is a basic housekeeping function at the cellular level, complete with its own plumbing system, is new. It's humbling to think about how much we still don't know about ourselves. There are processes in your body that have been going on since before you were born and will keep going until you die. Some of them we are just starting to understand. The glymphatic system can also help us understand other diseases besides Alzheimer's. For example, traumatic brain injury can mess up how the glymphatic system works. After a concussion, the normal flow of cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, may be disrupted, resulting in the accumulation of waste products that could exacerbate cognitive symptoms such as brain fog, concentration difficulties, and persistent headaches. Stroke also has an effect on glymphatic clearance. After a stroke, when blood flow to part of the brain stops, the glymphatic system has a harder time getting rid of the cellular waste that is left behind. This inefficiency could make things worse and slow down recovery. Knowing this could lead to new ways to treat people, we might be able to speed up healing and lower the risk of long-term damage if we can find ways to improve glymphatic function after an injury. There is also interesting research on how exercise affects the glymphatic system. Exercise, especially aerobic exercise, seems to help the glymphatic system clear out waste. The precise mechanisms are still being elucidated, but it appears that exercise enhances the pulsation of blood vessels, consequently facilitating increased cerebrospinal fluid flow through the perivascular spaces. Exercise also helps you sleep better, which in turn helps your glymphatic system work better. It's a good cycle. You feel better, you're more motivated to work out, and your brain cleans itself more quickly when you work out. Sadly, the opposite is also true. Not moving around enough can make it harder to sleep, slow down the glymphatic system, build up metabolic waste, make you tired, and even make you less motivated to move. It's hard to break that bad cycle, but knowing what's going on at the cellular level might help. I want to tell you something that stood out to me when I first heard about this system. It's almost poetic that our brains shrink and grow every day, making room for fluid to flow through. We usually think of our bodies as things that don't change, but in reality, we're always changing and moving. Even brain tissue, which seems solid, is always moving, contracting and expanding, and breathing in its own way. It has a rhythm, with the tide coming in and going out with the day and night cycle. We are not separate from nature's rhythms. We are them. Now, what about the things that make glymphatic function less effective? We've talked about not getting enough sleep, but there are other things. One big thing is getting older. The glymphatic system works less well as we get older. The aquaporin 4 channels don't work as well. The blood vessels' pulsation gets weaker. The production of CSF goes down a little bit. This all means that older people don't get rid of metabolic waste as well as younger people do. This decline that comes with age may be one reason why neurodegenerative diseases become more common as we get older. But here's the good news. Changes in lifestyle can help slow this decline. Taking care of your heart health, getting enough sleep, and exercising regularly are all things that help the glymphatic system work better as we get older. Another thing to think about is alcohol. You may have noticed that drinking alcohol makes you sleepy. You might even fall asleep faster if you drink. But that sleep isn't very good. Alcohol messes up your normal sleep patterns, which means you don't spend as much time in the deep, restorative sleep stages. And the glymphatic system is most active during those deep sleep stages. So even though you might be asleep, your brain isn't getting the cleaning it needs. Over time, drinking alcohol regularly can slow down the glymphatic system and make neurotoxic waste build up faster. This is another reason why drinking too much for a long time is bad for the brain. Stress and inflammation are also important. Long-term stress activates the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which causes cortisol and other stress hormones to stay high for a long time. These hormones can mess up sleep and make it harder for the glymphatic system to work. Chronic inflammation, whether due to autoimmune disorders, infections, or lifestyle factors such as an inadequate diet, can impair the fragile structures essential for glymphatic clearance. The aquaporin 4 channels may lose some of their ability to work. The spaces around blood vessels can get smaller. It serves as a reminder that the body's systems work together. You can't improve one system while ignoring the others. Health is holistic, which is a word that has become a bit of a cliche but is still true. I want to talk about something that might be on your mind for a moment. If you're lying there right now and are worried about whether you're getting enough sleep, whether your glymphatic system is working right, or whether you're on the right track to cognitive decline, take a breath. Worrying about sleep often makes it worse. The irony is real, but it's also cruel. I hope you don't feel scared after reading this, but empowered. You have control here. The decisions you make about when to go to bed, how to deal with stress, whether or not to work out, what to eat, and how much to drink are all important. Not in a "you're doing it wrong" way, but in a "you have the tools you need" way. Let's talk about some real-world things. You might have heard the term sleep hygiene before. It means the things you do and the habits you have that help you sleep well. Even on weekends, sticking to a regular sleep schedule can help your circadian rhythm. This regularity tells your body when to start cleaning the glymphatic system. A dark, cool, and quiet bedroom helps you sleep better. Limiting screen time before bed lowers the amount of blue light you see, which stops your body from making melatonin. These suggestions may seem boring, but they are based on real biology. They aren't just ideas. They're ways to make a very important biological process work better. There is also the issue of how long you sleep. How much sleep do you really need? Most adults need 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night for their glymphatic system to work best. But this number can change from person to person. Some people can get by with less, while others need more. But sleeping less than 7 hours a night all the time is linked to less glymphatic clearance. You might feel like you're doing fine after 6 hours, and you might be in the short term. But over time, the effects of less waste clearance can add up. You can get by month to month by making minimum payments on a credit card, but the debt keeps growing. The fact that glymphatic research has implications for shift workers and people with irregular schedules is one of the most interesting things about it. Your circadian rhythm gets messed up when you work night shifts or travel across several time zones. Your body doesn't know when to start deep sleep and increase glymphatic activity. Over time, this disruption can make it harder for the body to get rid of metabolic waste and raise the risk of cognitive problems. Research on long-term shift workers indicates elevated rates of cognitive decline and dementia relative to individuals with conventional daytime work schedules. This doesn't mean that working shifts will always lead to dementia, but it does show how important the circadian system is for keeping the brain healthy. If you work shifts or have a schedule that isn't always the same, it's even more important to pay attention to sleep hygiene and find ways to help your body's natural rhythms. Let's look at CSF from a different point of view. Choroid plexuses, which are specialized structures in the ventricles, the hollow chambers deep inside your brain, make this fluid all the time. The choroid plexuses are like small factories that filter blood and make CSF. This new CSF then moves through the ventricles, around the outside of the brain and spinal cord, and through the glymphatic pathways. Arachnoid granulations, which stick out into the large veins that carry blood away from the brain, eventually reabsorb the CSF back into the bloodstream. It's a full circulatory system that runs alongside your blood circulation. This system exists and works so well that it shows how beautiful biological engineering is. I find the philosophical side of all this interesting. The glymphatic system shows us that taking care of things is just as important as doing things. Our culture often praises being busy, getting things done, and never stopping. But your brain, the part of you that lets you be busy and get things done, needs time to rest to stay healthy. You don't waste time when you sleep. It's not a biological necessity that you should try to minimize. It's an important part of the process where a lot of the most important work gets done. When you're not trying to do anything, all of these things happen. Cleaning, consolidating memories, and bringing neurotransmitter levels back to normal. I think there's a lesson in that about how important it is to rest, let go, and trust in things that happen without us trying to make them happen. Another area of active research is finding ways to improve glymphatic function with drugs. Are there any drugs or treatments that can make CSF flow better or make aquaporin 4 channels work better? Some scientists are looking into whether certain drugs, or even things like transcranial magnetic stimulation, could help the glymphatic system clear out more quickly. This is still early research, and we don't yet have any proven treatments other than lifestyle changes. But the possibilities are exciting. What if in the future we could give people treatments that help their brains clean themselves better? This could stop or slow the progression of neurodegenerative diseases. That would change the way we think about brain health. Another thing to think about is hydration. Because CSF is mostly water, dehydration can change how much CSF is made and how it moves. Drinking enough water helps the glymphatic system work. This doesn't mean you have to drink a lot of water, but it does mean that if you don't drink enough water for a long time, it could make it harder for your brain to clean itself. Pay attention to your body. When you're thirsty, drink. The color of your urine can tell you a lot about your hydration. Pale yellow usually means you're well hydrated. These are easy to see, but they are important. I want to tell you about a study that really hit home for me. Researchers used imaging technology to see how the glymphatic system works in real brains. They put a tracer into the CSF and followed its path. The tracer hardly moved while people were awake. It was mostly still there, but when the subjects fell asleep, the tracer started to flow through the brain along the perivascular pathways. The pictures were amazing. You could actually see the cleaning process happening as it happened. It was proof of something that had been thought about but never seen in people before. Seeing it made it real in a way that words couldn't quite do. We should also talk about the meninges, which are the membranes that protect the brain and spinal cord. The dura mater, the arachnoid mater, and the pia mater are the 3 layers. The arachnoid matter is very important to the glymphatic system because it is linked to the subarachnoid space, where a lot of the CSF moves around. Recent studies have demonstrated that the meninges possess lymphatic vessels, genuine lymphatic vessels, rather than merely glymphatic pathways. These meningeal lymphatic vessels carry immune cells and cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, from the brain to the cervical lymph nodes in the neck. The neuroscience community was shocked by this discovery, which was made around 2015. For more than 100 years, medical students were taught that the brain didn't have any lymphatic vessels. It was a fact in textbooks, and then, all of a sudden, they were there, hiding in plain sight in the meninges. It's a reminder that new observations can change even long-held scientific beliefs. These lymphatic vessels in the meninges work with the glymphatic system. The glymphatic pathways move CSF and waste through the brain tissue itself. The meningeal lymphatics, on the other hand, give the waste a way to leave the central nervous system and be processed by the body's immune system. It's a complete waste management system, and both parts are necessary. If the glymphatic pathways or the meningeal lymphatics are damaged, toxins can build up and not be cleared out. It's almost spiritual to think that your brain is being cleaned while you sleep. Many spiritual traditions stress the importance of purification, which means cleaning both the body and the mind. And this is a real physical way to clean your mind that happens every night. The metaphor comes to life. You go to bed with the day's metabolic load, and when you wake up, you're not only mentally but also physically refreshed. The slate isn't completely clean. Memories and lessons stay, but the trash is gone. It's a new day every day, like a small rebirth. Circadian biology adds to this story in a different way. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN, is a small part of the hypothalamus that controls your circadian rhythm. The SCN gets information from special cells in your retina that are sensitive to light, especially blue light. When it's light, SCN tells you. The SCN makes the pineal gland release melatonin when it's dark, which helps you sleep. The circadian system doesn't just control when we sleep and when we wake up. It also has an effect on when glymphatic activity happens. The glymphatic system has its own circadian rhythm, and the rates at which it clears things out are highest during the biological night. This is why it's not enough to just get enough sleep. You also need to sleep at the right time. Even if you sleep for the same amount of time, sleeping during the day doesn't give you the same glymphatic benefits as sleeping at night. I want to go back to Alzheimer's disease for a second. The link between glymphatic dysfunction and neurodegeneration is one of the most important things this research shows. Alzheimer's disease is marked by the buildup of amyloid beta plaques and tau tangles in the brain. For more than 100 years, we've known about these pathological features, but figuring out why they build up has been harder. The glymphatic theory provides a convincing rationale. They accumulate due to ineffective clearance. People with Alzheimer's don't always make more amyloid beta or tau, but their glymphatic systems aren't getting rid of these proteins as well as they should. Over the years, even a small drop in clearance efficiency can cause a lot of build-up. This has significant consequences for prevention. If problems with the glymphatic system are an early sign of Alzheimer's, then treatments that help the glymphatic system work better might slow down or even stop the disease. Not yet. There isn't a pill that can speed up a slow glymphatic system, but we can change our lifestyles by making sleep a priority, staying active, controlling risk factors for heart disease like high blood pressure and diabetes, staying mentally active, and keeping up with friends and family. All of these things, which have been suggested for brain health for a long time, may help the glymphatic system work better. It changes these suggestions from general advice to specific plans that target a known biological mechanism. There is also new research on the gut-brain axis and how it connects to the glymphatic system. The trillions of bacteria that live in your digestive tract make up your gut microbiome. This microbiome affects many parts of your health, including how your brain works. Some research shows that gut bacteria may have an effect on how metabolites are made and how quickly they are removed by the glymphatic system. An unbalanced microbiome could cause the body to make more neurotoxic substances, which would put more stress on the glymphatic system. On the other hand, a healthy microbiome might help with that. This is just a guess, and the research is still in its early stages, but it suggests another link, another way that different systems in the body talk to and affect each other. As you lie there listening and maybe even falling asleep, your glymphatic system is getting ready to do its job. Your brain cells will start to get smaller soon. The channels will get bigger. New cerebrospinal fluid will start to flow through the spaces around blood vessels, picking up the thoughts and activities of the day. Proteins that don't fold correctly will be thrown away. When you wake up tomorrow, You won't feel foggy because the adenosine that built up while you were using energy will be gone. Before amyloid beta fragments can stick together and form plaques, they will be taken away. It's happening on its own, without you having to do anything. You don't have to think about it for it to happen. You just need to sleep. One of the best things about being alive is that the body can take care of itself, heal itself, and start over. Yes, things do break down over time. Aging is real. But the design includes systems that fight entropy by cleaning, fixing, and restoring. One of these systems is the glymphatic system, and it's working for you right now, or it will be soon as you fall asleep. That knowledge makes me feel better. You are literally taken care of by things that you don't even know are happening. Before we end, I want to talk about one more thing. How important it is to treat sleep problems. Sleep apnea, insomnia, and restless leg syndrome are some of the conditions that change how sleep is structured and make glymphatic function worse. It's important to pay attention to sleep apnea. When you stop breathing many times during the night, your brain wakes up from deep sleep many times. This fragmentation stops the glymphatic system from getting the long periods of deep sleep it needs to work at its best. It's a good idea to see a doctor about a sleep study if you snore loudly, wake up gasping, or feel very tired during the day, even though you get enough sleep. Using a CPAP machine to treat sleep apnea can greatly improve the quality of your sleep, and, in turn, your glymphatic clearance. It's not a little thing. It is an intervention that could have a big impact on brain health over time. Chronic insomnia, or trouble falling or staying asleep for a long time, also needs to be treated. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, is a very effective treatment that doesn't require medication. It works by changing the thoughts and actions that keep you awake, which helps you get back to a healthy sleep schedule. Medication can help in the short term, but it doesn't always give you the same quality of deep sleep as natural sleep. On the other hand, CBTI can help you get better for a long time. Don't just accept that you have trouble sleeping as a fact that can't be changed. There is help available, and the benefits go far beyond just feeling more rested. Let's take a moment to think about where we've been tonight. We began by learning about the glymphatic system, which is a network of perivascular channels that carry cerebrospinal fluid away from the brain and spinal cord, taking away metabolic waste. We looked into the function of astrocytes and their aquaporin 4 channels, which are tiny structures that make this flow possible. We talked about how this system works best when you are sleeping, especially when you are in deep sleep. We also talked about how not getting enough sleep can cause waste to build up, which may lead to neurodegenerative disease. We looked at what makes glymphatic function worse, like getting older, drinking too much, being stressed, and having inflammation. We also looked at what makes it better, like working out, drinking enough water, and getting enough sleep. We talked about how this could affect people with Alzheimer's, traumatic brain injury, and stroke in a bigger way. We also talked about the philosophical side, which is the idea that rest and maintenance are just as important as work and productivity. You can go to bed tonight with a new understanding of what's about to happen. Your brain isn't shutting down. It's changing from being actively involved in the world to taking care of itself. The city lights go out and the cleaning crew gets to work. Daytime trash will be picked up. Tomorrow you'll wake up cleaner and clearer, ready to make new memories and collect more trash, which will be cleaned again the next night. For as long as brains have been around, there has been a cycle, a rhythm, and a dance between activity and rest. It's beautiful to know this. It links you to something bigger than yourself, like the long history of evolution, the complex dance of biological systems, and the need for all living things to heal. This cleaning process is happening to every animal that sleeps. You are part of a huge group of sleepers, from the smallest mouse to the biggest whale. We all go through cycles of wakefulness and sleep, action and rest, building up and cleaning away. If you found this trip through the glymphatic system helpful, please tell someone else about it. If you haven't already, think about subscribing so you can join me on more adventures like this one. There are a lot of systems in the body, and a lot of things happen that we don't even know about. Each one is a small miracle of engineering and adaptation. If you want, we can look at more of them together. It's time to let go for now. You have finished your work. The glymphatic system will take care of it from here. Get some sleep. Get a good night's sleep. Start the cleaning now. Your brain has been working hard all day, and now it needs some time to rest. The cerebrospinal fluid is ready to flow through those channels and take away the things that happened today. And you can just let it happen. You don't have to do anything or go anywhere. Just here, just now, just falling into the deep sleep that you need, where thoughts fade away and systems start to work, where the conscious mind lets go and the body's wisdom takes over. You will wake up tomorrow, the sun will come up, the cycle will start over. But tonight is for cleaning, clearing, and making room for whatever comes next. Have faith in the process. This amazing discovery about the glymphatic system shows us how much our bodies know, how much they do without our direction, and how much care is built into being alive. And so, as your eyelids get heavy, your breathing slows and deepens, and the line between waking and sleeping gets blurry and then disappears, know that you are held by systems that are older than language, more reliable than thought, and more faithful than memory. The glymphatic system is there, ready to do its job. You just need to sleep. Good night. Try again. CW not long enough. Change the glymphatic system, how the brain cleans itself. While you sleep, if you haven't already, close your eyes for a moment. Breathe in through your nose slowly. Just hold it there for a second or two. Let it go slowly through your mouth now. Let your shoulders drop a little as the stress goes away. Okay, you and I are going to spend the next hour together looking at one of the most beautiful and recently discovered systems in your body. This system is literally working its hardest when you are doing nothing at all. If you like these in-depth looks at the hidden structures of being human, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. It makes it easier for more people to find these talks, and I'm really interested. Where in the world are you listening to this tonight? Are you in a small Berlin apartment, snuggled up in bed? You could also be in a suburb of Melbourne, a farmhouse in rural Iowa, or a high-rise in Singapore. You chose to be here right now, and that choice is more important than you might think. We are going to talk about the glymphatic system tonight. Doesn't the name itself sound wrong? It's not lymphatic, which you might have heard of. It's glymphatic. Glymphatic. It seems like someone made a mistake that stuck. There is, however, a very specific reason for that strange spelling, and we'll get to it soon. The glymphatic system is like your brain's janitorial service, maintenance crew, and night shift cleaning staff all rolled into one. This system works all the time to get rid of the metabolic waste that builds up while you're awake and thinking and moving around the world. It does this while you sleep, when you're completely unconscious and unaware. If you want to, think of it this way. Your brain is like a busy city at rush hour all day, every day. Millions and millions of neurons are firing all the time, which makes thoughts, processes, sensory information, stores memories, makes decisions, and coordinates movement. All of that amazing activity and mental work creates waste. Proteins fold in the wrong way and need to be thrown away. The spaces between cells fill up with metabolic waste. If you want to think of it that way, there's cellular exhaust, which is what happens when you do the work of consciousness. And here's the interesting thing. Scientists have been trying to figure this out for a long time. Your brain doesn't have a normal lymphatic system like your muscles, liver, and kidneys do to get rid of this trash. There are tiny tubes called lymphatic vessels that run through your arms, legs, and torso. These vessels collect waste and take it to lymph nodes, where it can be filtered and processed. But your brain doesn't have those vessels for reasons we'll talk about. Scientists have been wondering for decades, even generations, how the brain stays clean. How did it keep from drowning in its own waste? The answer was right there all along, waiting for the right questions and technology to bring it to light. I can give you a picture that might help you understand this better. Think of your brain as a sponge. I know that's not a perfect comparison. The brain is much more complicated than any sponge, but bear with me for a moment. Imagine a sponge, like a natural sea sponge, that is very complicated and has billions of tiny rooms, channels, and passageways running through it. Now picture this sponge sitting in a bowl of clear, clean water. The sponge gets bigger and more active during the day when you're awake. Everything they need to work is in the chambers, which are full. The passages are small and tight, but then, when you fall asleep at night and your mind starts to fade, something amazing happens. The sponge gets smaller, not in a violent way, but slowly and steadily, by about 20%. And in that small contraction, in that small shrinking, space opens up. The channels get bigger, the passageways turn into highways, and the cerebrospinal fluid that surrounds your brain, which we'll talk about more later, starts to flow more freely through these newly opened corridors, flushing away the waste that built up while you were awake. In 2012, this process and the whole system were only officially recognized. That's right, you heard that right. Not 1992, not 1912, but 2012. It was only 13 years ago that I was talking to you. Maiken Nedergaard, a researcher at the University of Rochester in New York, made a discovery that changed everything we thought we knew about why we sleep and what happens while we're asleep. Before she did her research, how the brain cleaned itself was mostly a mystery, almost magical. Of course, scientists knew that trash had to go somewhere. It couldn't just keep building up forever. They knew that animals that didn't get enough sleep would eventually die. They knew that sleep was important for life, but the link between those two facts, the real physical mechanism that linked sleep to getting rid of waste, was still hard to find. Dr. Nedergaard called her discovery the glymphatic system. It's a portmanteau, or a combination of two words, that combines glia, which means support cells of the brain, with lymphatic, because this system does a job that is very similar to the lymphatic system found in other parts of the body. Let's take it easy now. We need to take our time and build this understanding slowly, piece by piece, layer by layer, because it's too important to rush through. First, we need to talk about cerebrospinal fluid, which is almost always called CSF in medical writing. This liquid is clear, has no colour, and is about as thin as water. It completely surrounds your brain and spinal cord, protecting them from physical harm by cushioning them. Your body makes about 500 millilitres of CSF every day, which is a little more than 2 cups. That fluid is always being changed, always being turned over. Yes, the CSF acts as a cushion by absorbing shocks and keeping your brain from hitting the inside of your skull when you move. But it also brings nutrients to brain cells, and most importantly, it gets rid of waste. For a long time, scientists thought that CSF just moved around your brain in a passive way, with maybe some diffusion and mixing happening slowly. Dr. Nedergaard's discovery was much more elegant, purposeful, and active than that simple model made it seem. She learned that CSF doesn't just slosh around. It moves. It moves purposefully and in a certain direction, along certain paths, because of pressure gradients and with the help of the supportive glial cells I talked about before. Researchers were able to see the brains of living mice in real time because of advances in imaging technology, especially 2-photon microscopy. This let them see the flow of fluorescent traces as they moved through the tissue, and what they saw was amazing, almost too good to be true at first. They noticed that while they were sleeping, the flow of CSF through the brain increased by a huge amount, about 10 times more than when they were awake. The brain was being cleaned out by fresh fluid that was actively flowing through it and carrying away waste that had built up. Let me explain why this is so important to you. Your brain only makes up about 2% of your total body weight. If you weigh 70 kilograms, about 150 pounds, your brain weighs about 1.4 kilograms, just over 3 pounds. Your brain uses about 20% of all the energy your body uses, even though it only makes up 2% of your body weight. 20%. That little organ inside your skull gets 1/5 of all your calories, oxygen, and glucose. All of that metabolic activity and energy use creates waste. You can't avoid it. Cells make exhaust when they burn fuel. Some of the waste products aren't too bad. For example, adenosine builds up during the day and makes you sleepy, and lactate is made when neurons work hard. But some other waste products are more worrisome. Amyloid beta proteins are pieces left over from the normal breakdown of a bigger protein. Proteins called tau can get folded up wrong. Other kinds of cellular waste and molecular trash. If these waste products build up over time, they may play a big role in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Now here's the brain's unique problem, the one that it has to deal with. Your brain is different from your muscles, liver, and kidneys in that it is surrounded by bone. There are membranes around it that protect it. It is behind the blood-brain barrier, which is a selective filter that keeps most things in your blood from getting into your brain tissue. This is protective and very important for keeping toxins and germs away from your fragile neural tissue. But that also means that the brain can't get rid of waste the same way the rest of your body does. It doesn't have the luxury of having normal lymphatic vessels running through its tissue to collect waste and get rid of it. It can't get through the blood-brain barrier. So evolution came up with something new, something different, something that human scientists wouldn't find out about until the 21st century. The glymphatic system uses spaces around blood vessels to work. These are small gaps, really microscopic sleeves, that are around every blood vessel in your brain. Think about all the blood vessels in your brain. There are hundreds of miles of them. Now picture each one wearing a sleeve with a small space between the sleeve and the wall of the vessel. These spaces around blood vessels, called perivascular spaces, make channels. They're really highways that let cerebrospinal fluid flow deep into brain tissue. These highways get even wider when you sleep, which is when your brain cells shrink a little bit. As I said before, the brain gets fresh CSF, which is clean and clear, through the outside of arteries, which are the blood vessels that bring blood into the brain. This new fluid moves into the interstitial space, which is the space between brain cells that is filled with fluid and where neurons and glia live and work. As the new CSF mixes with the interstitial fluid that is already there, it picks up waste, dissolved proteins, metabolic byproducts, and all the molecular trash that has built up during the day. Imagine a river collecting dirt and silt as it flows. Then this dirty fluid, which is now full of cellular trash, drains out along the outside of veins, which are the vessels that carry blood away from the brain. It eventually gets to the lymphatic vessels in your neck, where it can be properly processed and removed from your body through normal channels. Astrocytes, a type of glial cell, are the unsung heroes of this whole process. People have known about these cells for a long time, but they were often thought of as just support cells, like scaffolding for neurons, which are the cells that do the real work of thinking and processing. That was a very wrong way to think about how important they were. Astrocytes are star-shaped cells. The name comes from the Greek word for star. They have long, thin extensions that reach out and wrap around blood vessels like fingers. Aquaporin 4, or AQP4 for short, are special water channels that run through these cellular fingers. Picture these channels as locks in a canal system that control the flow of water and let fluids move through cell membranes that would otherwise be hard to get through. The AQP4 channels help CSF move around, letting it get deep into brain tissue much more quickly than diffusion alone could. The glymphatic system slows down and doesn't work as well when these channels aren't working right. Waste builds up, and the effects can last for months, years, and even decades. Now let's bring this back to you right now as you lie in bed or sit in a quiet room and listen to these words. Let's make this about us. The glymphatic system works best when you sleep. Not just any sleep, but especially during the deeper stages of sleep, like slow wave sleep, sometimes called deep sleep, and REM sleep, which is when most of your dreaming happens. Studies using advanced imaging technology have shown, without a doubt, that the flow of CSF through the brain increases dramatically when we're unconscious. The system works at maybe 10% of its full capacity, or even less, while you're awake and doing things like reading, working, talking, and thinking. It's there and working, but it's not doing anything. But when you sleep, really sleep deeply, it goes all the way up to full power. That 20% we talked about is how much your brain cells shrink. The space between the cells gets bigger. The channels are wide open, and the cleaning really starts now with a deep clean that your brain needs to work well the next day. This finding gives one of the strongest biological reasons for why not getting enough sleep is so bad for you. When you don't get enough sleep, you're not just tired because your neurons need rest. That's definitely part of it. You're also building up metabolic waste that would have been cleared away at night. You're letting the trash build up. If garbage collection stopped, a city would stop working properly. The same thing happens to your brain when glymphatic clearance is not working properly. The effects build up over time. You can get better after one bad night. You'll feel it after a week of bad nights, but you'll get over it. But when you don't get enough sleep or glymphatic clearance for months or years, that's when big problems start to happen. Here's an analogy that might work for you, especially if you've ever worked in food service or hospitality. Imagine the kitchen of a restaurant during the dinner rush. It's a kind of controlled chaos, isn't it? There are always new orders coming in. There is a lot of noise coming from the pans. There are flames jumping. There is steam rising. Hungry customers are getting plates. There is a lot of food waste in the bins. Counters are getting dirty with sauce and flour. There are vegetable scraps all over the cutting boards. But the kitchen keeps working and making food because the main goal is to get the job done and feed the people who are waiting. Then when the last customer leaves and the doors are locked, the restaurant closes for the night and the night crew comes in. If you're a customer, you never see these people. They clean every surface. They get rid of all the trash. They clean the prep stations and cutting boards. They mop the floors and clean the grease traps. They get everything ready for the next day. The kitchen would become less and less useful without that nightly cleaning and other important maintenance. There would be a lot of health code violations. It would be less efficient. In the end, inspectors or the dirt that had built up would stop the whole thing from working. That kitchen is your brain. The dinner rush is when you wake up. And sleep, deep, restorative sleep, is what your night crew does. Careful scientific studies on both animals and people have shown that people who don't get enough sleep have less glymphatic clearance. Instead of being flushed away every night, the waste products stay in the brain tissue where they build up. One of these waste products is amyloid beta, which is a protein fragment that I talked about earlier and is linked to Alzheimer's disease. During the day, when your neurons are working normally, they make amyloid beta as a normal byproduct of their work. It's not a disease in and of itself. It's just something that happens when you work as a neuron. Your glymphatic system clears away that amyloid beta every night if you sleep well. The levels never get so high that they cause problems. But if you don't get enough sleep, if you don't sleep well, or if you don't sleep well even if you get enough sleep, that amyloid beta starts to build up. And over the years and decades, this slow build-up may help make the amyloid plaques that are found in the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease. I want to be very clear about this so that I don't make anyone worry for no reason. This doesn't mean that you will get Alzheimer's if you only sleep poorly for one night. It doesn't even mean that one bad year of sleep will give you Alzheimer's. There are many factors that make the connection between sleep, glymphatic function, and neurodegeneration complicated. There are many things that can cause Alzheimer's, such as genetics, inflammation, blood vessel health, lifestyle, and maybe even things we don't know about yet. But the research strongly suggests that getting enough good sleep on a regular basis throughout your life is one of the best things you can do to protect yourself. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it makes your chances much better. The glymphatic system has also given us some interesting information about why the way you sleep might be important for brain health. Some studies, mostly on mice but with some human data coming in, have found that sleeping on your side may help the glymphatic system clear out better than sleeping on your back or stomach. We don't yet know exactly how it works in people, and the effect might not be very strong. But the idea is that sleeping on your side helps the perivascular spaces line up better and makes it easier for waste to leave the body. It's interesting to think that even small things about how we sleep, not just how long we sleep, could affect how well our brains clean themselves. I find it strangely comforting to think that something as simple and natural as rolling onto my side at night might be giving the people who take care of my brain a small advantage, making their already hard job a little bit easier. Let's take a moment to think about the history of all this and the time it happened. For most of human history, sleep was a total mystery for thousands and thousands of years. No one could explain why it happened every day. People in the past thought of it as a small death, a short break from being, and a daily practice for the death we all face. Philosophers from Aristotle onward have talked about what its purpose is. Was it just rest for the body, a time when the soul could roam? In the 20th century, modern neuroscience taught us about circadian rhythms, which are the internal biological clocks that control when we sleep and wake up. We learned what hormones like melatonin do. We used electroencephalography to measure brain waves and figure out what stage of sleep we were in. We found REM sleep in the 1950s and how closely it is linked to dreaming. But the idea that sleep is a basic housekeeping function at the cellular level, with a special hydraulic system made just for getting rid of waste from the brain, is really new. It's humbling, really. Almost amazing when you think about it, to realize how much we still don't know about ourselves. There are processes in our bodies that have been going on since before we were born and will keep going on until we die. Some of them, many of them really, we're only now starting to understand. The glymphatic system helps us learn more about diseases other than Alzheimer's as well. Traumatic brain injury, which impacts millions annually, can significantly impair glymphatic function. After a concussion, even a mild traumatic brain injury, the normal flow of CSF may be affected. The brain gets a little bigger. The spaces around the blood vessels get smaller. The aquaporin 4 channels might not work right. All of this leads to a buildup of waste products and inflammatory molecules that could be a big part of the cognitive problems people have after head injuries, like brain fog that won't go away, trouble concentrating, memory problems, and headaches that won't go away. This understanding may lead to new ways to treat people. We might be able to improve healing outcomes and lower the long-term damage that traumatic brain injuries can cause if we can find ways to improve glymphatic function after an injury and get that cleaning system working properly again. Stroke also has a big effect on glymphatic clearance. When a stroke cuts off blood flow to a part of the brain, the neurons in that area start to die within minutes. But the damage doesn't stop when blood flow is restored. After a stroke, the glymphatic system has a much harder time getting rid of the cellular waste that is left behind, such as dead cell fragments, inflammatory molecules, and other toxic substances. This inefficiency could make things worse and slow down recovery. It could be a factor in the cognitive decline that many stroke survivors go through. Once more, learning about the glymphatic system's role in stroke recovery could lead to new ways to help the brain heal itself and new treatments. There is also interesting and growing research on how exercise affects the glymphatic system. We've known for a long time that working out regularly is good for the brain, and may help keep it from getting worse and getting dementia. But we didn't know everything about how they worked. It looks like exercise, especially aerobic exercise that makes your heart rate go up and makes you breathe harder, helps the glymphatic system work better. Scientists around the world are still trying to figure out exactly how this works, but it seems that exercise makes blood vessels pulse more. Every time your heart beats, it sends a pulse wave through your arteries. This pulse wave seems to help move CSF through the spaces around blood vessels. More vigorous pulsation means more flow and more cleaning. Exercise also helps you sleep better, which we talked about earlier, and that directly improves glymphatic function. In other words, it's a good cycle that keeps going. You work out, which helps you sleep better, which helps your brain clean itself better, which makes you feel better and think more clearly, which gives you more energy and motivation to work out. Sadly, the opposite is also true. Not moving around much makes it harder to sleep, which makes the glymphatic system work less well, which makes metabolic waste build up, which makes you tired and foggy, which makes you even less motivated to move. It can be hard to break that bad cycle, but knowing what's going on at the cellular level and that you're literally letting waste build up in your brain might give you some extra motivation. Let me tell you something that really hit me when I first heard about this system and still moves me when I think about it. The idea that our brains are physically shrinking and expanding on a daily rhythm, making room for fluid to flow through and wash away the day's debris, is almost poetic and beautiful. We usually think of our bodies as things that don't change, like rocks. When we look in the mirror, we see ourselves as the same person all the time. But in reality, we're very dynamic, and at every level, from the molecular to the cellular to the systemic, things are always changing. Brain tissue, which seems to be solid, is always moving, expanding and contracting and breathing in its own way. It has a rhythm, with the tide coming in and going out with the day and night cycle. Nature's rhythms are not separate from us. We don't just watch the cycles of light and dark, sleep and wake. We are them. They're in our cells, in the way our brains are built, and in the way fluid moves through our neural tissue. What about the things that make glymphatic function worse? We've talked about not getting enough sleep, which is probably the most obvious and common one, but there are other things worth talking about. Aging is a big one, and it's worth spending some time on this because everyone who hears it will continue to age. The glymphatic system doesn't work as well as we get older. This can be measured and seen in studies. The aquaporin 4 channels don't work as well as they used to. The pulsation of blood vessels gets weaker. Your arteries become stiffer and less flexible, and that means less driving force for CSF flow. As people get older, their bodies make less CSF. The spaces around the blood vessels may get a little smaller. Because of all of these changes, older people don't get rid of metabolic waste as well as younger people do. This decline in glymphatic function that comes with age could be a big reason why neurodegenerative diseases become much more common as we get older. It's not the only reason, but it seems to be a big part of the puzzle. But here's the good news. Lifestyle changes can help slow down this decline that comes with age. They can't stop it completely or reverse the aging process, but they can slow it down and keep it going longer. We'll talk more about good sleep hygiene later, but regular exercise, keeping your heart healthy, controlling your blood pressure, managing diabetes if you have it, and staying socially and intellectually active all help the glymphatic system work better as we get older. You have power here. You are in charge. Life isn't fair, biology isn't fair, and genetics play a role that we can't change. But still, meaningful control. Another thing to think about is alcohol, especially since so many people don't understand how alcohol affects sleep. You may have noticed, or you may know someone who has, that alcohol makes you sleepy. You might even fall asleep faster if you drink a couple of beers or a glass or two of wine. The alcohol slows down brain activity, makes you feel sleepy and relaxed, and you fall asleep pretty easily. But here's the important part, that sleep isn't very good. Alcohol changes the way normal sleep works in a big way. It stops REM sleep, at least for the first part of the night. It makes you wake up more often, even if you don't remember them in the morning. It makes you sleep less deeply and more lightly, which is not good for the glymphatic system. Your brain isn't getting the deep, restorative cleaning it needs, even if you're unconscious and lying in bed with your eyes closed for 8 hours. Over time, regular drinking, especially heavy drinking, can cause glymphatic clearance to drop and neurotoxic waste to build up. This is just one of many ways that long-term heavy drinking hurts the brain. There are direct toxic effects of alcohol on neurons, but this damage to the brain's cleaning system is also a big problem. Stress and inflammation are also important for glymphatic function, and they are connected in complicated ways. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis is turned on by long-term stress, which can come from ongoing difficult life situations, anxiety disorders, or a fight or flight response that is always on. This is the main way your body deals with stress. When it is turned on all the time, it causes cortisol and other stress hormones to stay high. When these hormones stay high for a long time, they can mess up normal sleep patterns. They can make it harder to fall asleep, stay asleep, and get to the deep stages of sleep where glymphatic clearance is at its best. Chronic stress also causes inflammation in the brain and other parts of the body. Inflammation can come from autoimmune diseases, long-term infections, or lifestyle choices like eating poorly or being overweight. It can also directly hurt the delicate structures that help with glymphatic clearance. The aquaporin, 4 channels may not work as well. Changes in the walls of blood vessels that cause inflammation can make the spaces around them narrower. When the blood-brain barrier breaks down, things that shouldn't be in the brain can get in. It reminds us, if we needed one, that the body's systems are very connected. You can't improve one system without also improving all the others. Health is a whole thing. I know that word has become a bit of a cliche, used too much by wellness influencers and marketing departments, but the idea behind it is still true at its most basic level. I want to stop here and talk about something directly, something that might be on your mind as you listen to all of this. Take a deep breath if you're feeling anxious right now and are worried about whether you're getting enough sleep, whether your glymphatic system is working properly, or whether you're building up toxic proteins that will cause dementia in 30 years. Worrying about sleep or being anxious about it can make it worse. It's one of the cruel things about not being able to sleep. The more you worry about not getting enough sleep, the harder it is to sleep. Your body's stress response kicks in, cortisol levels go up. You can't stop thinking about things that make you anxious, and sleep becomes even harder to find. What I really hope you get out of this hour we're spending together is not fear, but strength. Not worry, but understanding. You have the power here. Your decisions every day are important. The choices you make about how you deal with stress, how often you move your body, what you eat and drink, and how you interact with the world have real biological effects. Not in a way that punishes or judges you or tells you you're doing it wrong, but in a hopeful way, like you have tools at your disposal and you can change your path. Let's talk about some real-world things you can think about and maybe even do. You probably already know what sleep hygiene is. It's now a common word in our culture. It means the habits, behaviors, and environmental factors that help you sleep well. These suggestions may seem boring because they are so simple, but they are based on real biology and physiology. They're not just good ideas from doctors who want to help. They're ways to make a very important biological process that your brain needs work better. One of the most important things is to stick to a regular sleep schedule. Even on weekends, going to bed at about the same time every night, even if you don't have to get up early the next day, helps keep your circadian rhythm in check. It teaches your brain to expect sleep at a certain time. Your suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is the master clock in your hypothalamus, knows that it's time to start the chain of events that will help you fall asleep. Melatonin levels start to go up. The temperature of the body starts to go down a little. Adenosine levels rise throughout the day, making it easier to sleep. Your brain is ready to go when you lie down. The glymphatic system can do its job better because everything is in sync. It also matters to make your bedroom dark, cool, and quiet. It's not just about being comfortable again. Your brain knows it's nighttime and time to sleep when it gets dark. Even a little bit of light, like from a digital clock or a street light outside your window, can stop your body from making melatonin. A sleep mask or blackout curtains can help. Temperature is important because your core body temperature naturally drops while you sleep, and a cool room makes this happen more easily. Most sleep experts say that the best temperature for a bedroom is between 60 and 67 degrees Fahrenheit or 15 to 19 degrees Celsius. Quiet is important because noise can wake you up or make you sleep less deeply, which means your glymphatic system won't work as well for as long. White noise machines or earplugs can help if you can't stop outside noise. Limiting screen time before bed lowers exposure to blue light, which is the type of light that most strongly lowers melatonin levels. There is a lot of blue light coming from the screens on our phones, tablets, and computers. When you look at social media, check your email, or watch videos right before bed, you're telling your brain that it's still daytime and that it should stay awake. If you can, try to stay away from screens for an hour or two before bed. If that's not possible, which is the case for a lot of people, at least turn down the brightness on the screens, use blue light filters or night mode settings, or wear glasses that block blue light. These are small changes, but they can have a big effect. There is also the issue of how long people sleep, which is different for each person, but generally follows certain patterns. How much sleep do you really need for your glymphatic system to work its best? The answer is different for each person. Some people really can do well on a little less sleep. A small number of people have genetic differences that let them do well on 6 hours or less of sleep. But research shows that most adults need 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night for their brains to be healthy and for the glymphatic system to work well. 7 to 9 hours, not 4 or 5 or 5 or 6, with the idea that you can catch up on sleep on the weekend. You need 7 to 9 hours of real sleep, not just time in bed. You might think you're doing fine for 6 hours. You might have gotten used to not getting enough sleep all the time, and it's true that people can adapt and still be able to function. But doing things well is not the same as doing them perfectly. Research is making it clearer what the long-term effects of consistently getting less than 7 hours of sleep are. One of these effects is less glymphatic clearance. Over months, years, and decades, the effects of not getting rid of trash properly can add up to be very bad. If you want a financial comparison, it's like making the lowest payments on a credit card. You're getting by from month to month. You're doing okay. The card is not being turned down, but the debt keeps getting bigger in the meantime. Interest builds up, and in the end, the situation can't go on. Researchers call what you owe when you sleep debt. You can pay it back in part with a few good nights of sleep, but if you don't get enough sleep for a long time, the effects are hard to undo. One of the most interesting and worrying things about glymphatic research is how it affects people who work shifts or have irregular schedules. Millions of people around the world work night shifts, which means they stay awake when their bodies tell them it's time to sleep. People who work in factories, drive trucks, are police officers or security guards, or work in stores that are open 24 hours a day. Your circadian rhythm gets very messed up when you work night shifts and try to sleep during the day and stay awake at night. Your body doesn't know when to start deep sleep and increase glymphatic activity. The signals are all messed up. When you try to sleep, light is coming in through your windows. Your melatonin levels are all over the place. Your body temperature is not changing the way it should. And even if you can sleep for 7 or 8 hours during the day, That sleep is usually much worse than sleep at night. It's harder to get to the deep sleep stages. The glymphatic system doesn't work as well. Researchers have found that people who work shifts for a long time are more likely to have cognitive decline and dementia than people who work regular daytime hours. The higher risk is not small, it is big. This does not mean that every person who works shifts will get dementia. The biology of humans is strong and flexible, but it does make it very clear how important the circadian system is for keeping the brain healthy over a lifetime. If you work shifts or have an irregular schedule that messes with your normal sleep patterns, you need to pay even more attention to all the other parts of sleep hygiene. Keep things as consistent as possible, even if they are at strange times, always using blackout curtains. Taking care of your sleep time and making sure it's not negotiable. These strategies won't completely fix circadian disruption, but they can help lessen its effects. Let's look at cerebrospinal fluid from a different angle and add to what we know bit by bit. Choroid plexuses, which are specialized structures, make this amazing fluid all the time. These are found in the ventricles, which are the empty spaces deep inside your brain. There are 4 ventricles in your brain that are connected and make up a kind of lake system inside your brain. The choroid plexuses are like tiny factories made up of blood vessels and specialized cells that filter blood and make CSF. If you want, think of them as plants that take salt out of water. Try again. CW, go on, edit blood and turning it into this clear, specialized fluid that your brain needs. The choroid plexuses are always working, making about 20 milliliters of CSF every hour, day and night, without stopping. This new CSF then starts its journey. It goes through the ventricles, starting at the lateral ventricles at the top of your brain and moving through narrow channels to the 3rd ventricle. From there, it goes through an even narrower passage called the cerebral aqueduct to the 4th ventricle at the back of your brain, near your brainstem. It then leaves through small holes and enters the subarachnoid space, which is the space between 2 of the membranes that protect your brain. The CSF then flows all over your brain and down around your spinal cord, bathing your whole central nervous system in this protective, nourishing fluid. But the trip doesn't end there. Eventually, the CSF needs to be reabsorbed and removed from the body so that new fluid can take its place. Arachnoid granulations, which are also known as arachnoid villi, are the main structures that help with this reabsorption. These are small bumps, like tiny fingers, that stick out from the arachnoid membrane and into the big veins that carry blood away from your brain, especially the superior sagittal sinus, which runs along the top of your skull. The arachnoid granulations work like one-way valves. The CSF flows through these granulations and into the bloodstream when the pressure in the CSF is higher than the pressure in the vein, which is usually the case. The CSF has picked up waste products that are now in your venous blood. This blood will flow to your heart, then to your lungs to get oxygen, and finally to your kidneys and liver, where the waste can be filtered out and removed from your body. It's a full circulatory system that works alongside but not with your blood circulation. This system exists and works so well, and for such a good reason, it is proof of the incredible beauty of biological engineering and millions of years of evolution solving problems. I find the philosophical side of all this very interesting and worth talking about as we go deeper into this conversation. The glymphatic system is a real-life example of how important maintenance is as an activity, maybe more important in the long run. We live in a culture, especially in Western industrialized countries, that often praises being busy, productive, and always working hard. We honor people who work more, sleep less, and are always on. We've made this weird badge of honor out of being tired and giving up sleep to get things done. But your brain, which is what lets you be busy, productive, creative, and successful, needs a lot of time to rest in order to stay healthy. You don't waste time when you sleep. You shouldn't try to minimize, hack, or optimize away a biological need that isn't inconvenient. This is an important step in which a lot of the most important maintenance work gets done. The cleaning, yes, but also putting memories together, bringing neurotransmitter levels back to normal, fixing cell damage, combining learning and processing emotions. This all happens when you're not trying to do anything at all. I think there's a lesson in that, one that goes beyond biology to how we might live our lives. The worth of taking a break, the significance of relinquishment, the wisdom of trusting in processes that happen without us trying or controlling them. We can't get the lymphatic system to work. We can't mentally guide cerebrospinal fluid through perivascular spaces. We can't consciously make our brain cells smaller to make channels. We can only make the conditions right for these things to happen on their own. And then we have to give up, let go, and have faith. That is both very humbling and strangely comforting. Another area of active and exciting research is figuring out how to improve glymphatic function in ways other than changing one's lifestyle. Are there medications or treatments that can directly increase the flow of cerebrospinal fluid or enhance the performance of aquaporin 4 channels? Some scientists are looking into whether some drugs that are already being used for other things might help the glymphatic system. Some researchers are looking into whether transcranial magnetic stimulation, a method that uses magnetic fields to stimulate certain parts of the brain, could help the glymphatic system work better. There are also studies looking into whether sleeping in certain positions or gently moving the neck might help drain lymphatic vessels that we now know are in the meninges. This is still very early research. We don't have any proven drug or device-based treatments yet, other than the lifestyle changes we've talked about. But the possibilities are really exciting. In 10 or 20 years, we might be able to offer treatments that help the brain clean itself better. This could stop or slow down the progression of neurodegenerative diseases. That would be a real change in the way we think about brain health and aging. Instead of just treating symptoms after a disease has already developed, we would be able to stop the disease from happening in the first place. It's also worth talking about hydration, even though it seems simple. A lot of water makes up CSF. Of course, it's not pure water. It has electrolytes, glucose, proteins, and other dissolved substances in it. But water is the main part. Even mild dehydration can change how much CSF is made and how it moves around. When you don't drink enough water, your blood volume goes down a little. Your blood gets a little thicker and stickier. The choroid plexuses have less fluid to work with now. The production of CSF may go down. The dynamics of flow change. In theory, all of this can make glymphatic function worse. This doesn't mean you have to drink a lot of water all the time or carry around a gallon jug and sip from it all the time. That's not necessary and could even cause more problems. But it does mean that if you don't drink enough water throughout the day on a regular basis, it could slowly affect your brain's ability to clean itself. The answer is easy. Pay attention to your body. When you're thirsty, drink. The color of your urine can tell you how hydrated you are. Pale yellow usually means you're drinking enough water, while dark yellow or amber means you need to drink more. These are simple markers that are easy to see, but they are important for 1,000 different bodily functions, including glymphatic function. I want to tell you about a study that really made the glymphatic system real for me. It made it clear and real. Researchers from the National Institutes of Health, NIH, used cutting-edge MRI imaging technology to see how the glymphatic system works in real human brains. They put a contrast agent or tracer into the CSF of volunteers and then watched it move for several hours. The tracer hardly moved when the subjects were awake and aware. It was mostly still, sitting in the ventricles and on the surface of the brain, with only a little bit of it getting into the brain tissue. You could see it in the pictures. It was just sitting there, not going anywhere. But then, when the subjects were allowed to sleep, something amazing happened. The tracer started to move. It began to spread through the brain, going along the perivascular pathways we've been talking about, and going deep into the tissue. The pictures were striking, almost beautiful in how clear they were. You could see the cleaning process happening in real time, on real people. It was no longer just a theory or an extension of what had been learned from mouse studies. It was right there, plain to see, and there was no doubt about it. The glymphatic system worked just like the research said it would. Seeing those pictures made it real in a way that words alone couldn't quite do. This is really going on in your head right now. We should also talk about the meninges, which are the membranes that protect the brain and spinal cord. Recent discoveries have shown that they are much more important for getting rid of waste than anyone thought before. Meninges have 3 layers. The dura mater is the outermost layer. It is a thick, leathery membrane that lines the inside of your skull. The arachnoid matter is below that. It is named that because it has a delicate, web-like structure that early anatomists thought looked like a spider's web. The pia mater, which means tender mother, is the innermost layer. It is a thin membrane that sticks directly to the surface of the brain and follows every fold and crevice. The subarachnoid space is the area between the arachnoid and pia mater, and it's where most of the CSF flows. Now things get interesting. Researchers made another shocking discovery in 2015, just a few years after they found the glymphatic system itself. They found real lymphatic vessels in the meninges. There are real lymphatic vessels, not just functional analogues. These are real lymphatic endothelial cells that make tubes that collect fluid and immune cells. For over 100 years, since the beginning of modern neuroscience, medical students have been taught as fact that the brain does not have lymphatic vessels. It was in every book. It was basic knowledge. It was thought that the brain was immune privileged, which means it was separate from the lymphatic system that serves the rest of the body. And then they were there. Lymphatic vessels run through the dura mater, especially along the superior sagittal sinus and around the base of the skull. How had they been missed for so long? Partly because they're so small and fragile that it's easy to miss them. Partly because it's hard to picture them in a traditional way. And maybe also because everyone knew they weren't real, so no one was really looking for them. It's a humbling reminder that new observations and technologies can change what scientists agree on. The glymphatic system and these meningeal lymphatic vessels work together. The glymphatic pathways move CSF and dissolved waste through the brain tissue, while the meningeal lymphatics let that waste leave the central nervous system and enter the body's normal lymphatic circulation. After that, the waste can be moved to lymph nodes, where immune cells can look at it and respond if they need to. Finally, it can be moved to the bloodstream for final processing and removal by the liver and kidneys. Both parts are important because they work together to manage waste. If either the glymphatic pathways or the meningeal lymphatics are hurt, it can make it harder for the brain to get rid of toxins and build up. The idea that your brain is being washed clean while you sleep is almost spiritual, like something mystical. Many spiritual and religious traditions throughout history have stressed how important it is to purify or clean, not just the body, but also the mind and spirit. And this is a physical, tangible, and measurable process of mental cleansing that occurs every night. The metaphor turns into reality. When you go to sleep, you carry all the metabolic weight and burden of the day. All the thoughts you had, all the problems you solved, all the feelings you dealt with, and all the things you did. When you wake up, you feel cleaner, lighter, and renewed. Of course, the slate isn't completely clean. Memories last. Learning stays. You are still the same person you were yesterday, but the cellular debris, the molecular garbage, and the toxic waste products are all gone. They were flushed away while you were sleeping. Every day, you die a little and are born again. This cycle has been going on since the day you were born and will continue until the day you die. This story gets even more interesting and complicated with the addition of circadian biology. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN, is a small part of the hypothalamus that controls your circadian rhythm, which is an internal clock that runs for about 24 hours. This small group of about 20,000 neurons is your body's master clock, keeping all of its rhythms in sync. The SCN gets direct input from photosensitive ganglion cells in your retina. These cells have a photopigment called melanopsin. These cells can tell how much light is around them, especially in the blue wavelength range. When the sun or other light hits your retinas, those cells tell the SCN that it's daytime and time to be awake and alert. In response, the SCN stops making melatonin and turns on systems that make people feel excited. The SCN tells the pineal gland to start making melatonin, the hormone that helps you sleep and helps your body get ready for night. This happens when it gets dark outside. The circadian system does a lot more than just control when you sleep and wake up. It affects body temperature, which changes throughout the day and usually drops to its lowest point in the early morning. It changes the levels of hormones in your body. For example, cortisol levels go up in the morning to help you wake up. Growth hormone levels go down during deep sleep, and appetite hormones change throughout the day. It affects your immune system, metabolism, heart health, and even the way thousands of genes are expressed in your body. And most importantly for our purposes tonight, it has a direct effect on when glymphatic activity happens. The glymphatic system has its own circadian rhythm that works with sleep, but is not dependent on it. During the biological night, when your body expects to be asleep, clearance rates are at their highest. This is why getting enough sleep isn't just about getting a certain number of hours. It's also important to sleep at the right time, when your body's systems are ready to rest, heal, and clean. This explains something that a lot of shift workers and people who travel a lot find out the hard way. Sleeping during the day, even if you get 7 or 8 hours, doesn't feel the same as sleeping at night. It's not as good for you. You wake up and still feel tired. One reason is that your glymphatic system, which is controlled by your circadian clock, isn't working at its best. It's trying to do its job at what it thinks is the wrong time. The channels aren't opening up as much, the flow isn't as strong, the cleaning isn't as good. Over time, this mismatch between sleep timing and circadian phase can really hurt brain health. Let's go back to Alzheimer's disease for a longer discussion. The link between glymphatic dysfunction and neurodegeneration is one of the most important and potentially game-changing findings in this whole area of research. Alzheimer's disease is one of the most feared diagnoses a person can get. It affects millions of people around the world and has a number of pathological features. Amyloid beta plaques, which are clumps of misfolded protein that build up in the spaces between neurons, and neurofibrillary tangles, which are made of hyperphosphorylated tau protein that build up inside neurons, are the most common. Alois Alzheimer first wrote about these traits in 1906, which was more than 100 years ago. But the main question of why these proteins build up and why the brain can't get rid of them has been harder to answer. Over the years, a number of different ideas have been put forward. People with Alzheimer's might make too much tau or amyloid beta. Maybe the proteins themselves are messed up in some way that makes them likely to fold incorrectly. Maybe inflammation is the main cause. Maybe vascular problems start the chain reaction. The glymphatic theory provides an additional complementary viewpoint. It implies that these proteins accumulate not chiefly due to overproduction, although that may be a contributing factor in certain instances, but rather because they are not being adequately eliminated. Think of a bathtub that has both a drain and a faucet. The tub will eventually overflow if water is coming in faster than it is draining out. The conventional strategy for Alzheimer's has predominantly concentrated on the faucet, aiming to diminish the synthesis of amyloid beta and tau. And that makes sense. It's a smart move. But what if the drain is the real problem, or at least a big part of it? What if the glymphatic system, which is the brain's drainage system, gets less and less effective over the years and decades? That could be why these proteins build up. This recontextualization has significant ramifications for prevention and treatment. If glymphatic dysfunction is an early step in the pathological cascade that leads to Alzheimer's, then treatments that help and keep glymphatic function working might slow down or even stop the disease from starting. We're not there yet. There is no pill or procedure that can reliably bring glymphatic function back to levels seen in young people. We do have lifestyle changes that can help, and the proof that they work is getting stronger. Putting sleep first, and not just any sleep, but sleep of good quality that includes enough time in deep stages. Staying active by doing aerobic exercise on a regular basis. Taking care of cardiovascular risk factors aggressively, like keeping blood pressure in check, managing diabetes if you have it, and keeping cholesterol levels healthy. Keeping your mind busy with difficult mental tasks, keeping up strong social ties, eating a Mediterranean-style diet, which is high in plants and healthy fats, not drinking alcohol at all or as little as possible. Find ways to deal with stress that work for you, like meditation, spending time in nature, therapy, meaningful relationships, or creative activities. For years, people have been told to do all of these things to keep their brains healthy, but they didn't always know why they worked. Epidemiological studies and observational data suggested that they were beneficial, but we're starting to get a better idea of how some of these things work. These treatments help glymphatic function, which is one way they work. They help the brain's cleaning system work as well as it can for as long as possible. To go back to the bathtub metaphor, they keep the drain working. It changes these suggestions from vague, general advice into specific plans that target a known biological mechanism, and somehow that makes them feel more real, more doable, and more important. There's also interesting and growing research on how the gut microbiome and the glymphatic system work together. This is another example of how all of the body's systems are connected. The trillions of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms that live in your digestive tract make up your gut microbiome. This ecosystem has a big effect on your health in many ways. Over the past few decades, we've learned that the gut and brain are always talking to each other through the gut-brain axis, which is a two-way communication network that includes the vagus nerve, immune signaling molecules, hormones, and metabolites made by gut bacteria. These bacteria in the gut make neurotransmitters. They have an effect on inflammation all over the body, even in the brain. They change how the brain makes different chemicals that can help or hurt its function. Some initial studies indicate that gut bacteria may influence the synthesis and elimination of metabolites that the glymphatic system is responsible for removing. Dysbiosis, or an unbalanced microbiome, can cause the body to make more neurotoxic compounds or inflammatory molecules. These substances get into the blood, and if the blood-brain barrier is weak because of inflammation or age, some of them can cross it. They put more strain on the glymphatic system when they get into the brain, which has to work harder to get rid of them. On the other hand, a healthy, balanced microbiome might lessen that burden by making metabolites that are good for brain health and lowering the stress on the glymphatic clearance system. This research is still in its early stages, so I don't want to make too much of the results. But it also points to another link, another way that different systems in the body affect each other in complicated feedback loops. Your lymphatic system is ready to start working as you lie there listening to this, maybe drifting off to sleep or still awake and thinking about these ideas. If you're still awake, it's working at a low baseline level, maybe 10% of its full capacity. It's doing what it can, but not much. But everything will change soon when you finally let go and let yourself fall into a deep sleep. Your brain cells will start to shrink at night, pulling back a little and making room. The space between cells will grow by about 20%. The channels around the blood vessels will get bigger. The astrocyte end feet have aquaporin 4 channels that will help cerebrospinal fluid flow into the brain tissue. Fresh, clean CSF will begin its journey, flowing through the arteries and into every part of your brain. It will go from the frontal cortex, where you make decisions and plan for the future, to the hippocampus, where you form new memories, to the amygdala, where emotions are processed, and finally to the brainstem, which controls basic life functions. This fluid will mix with the interstitial fluid that surrounds your neurons and pick up the waste that has built up during the day. Pieces of amyloid beta, proteins called tau, lactate, adenosine, all the molecular trash that has been piling up since you got up this morning. After that, the contaminated fluid will start to drain away, carrying all this trash with it. It will flow out through the veins, which are the blood vessels that carry blood back to the heart. It will move through the space between the arachnoid and the brain. Some will be taken up into venous blood through arachnoid pellets. Some people will drain these newly found lymphatic vessels in the meninges. Eventually, all of it will leave your brain and go to the normal waste disposal systems in your body. It will be processed by your liver. Your kidneys will clean it up. You'll get rid of it by urinating and breathing out the metabolic waste from today's thoughts and experiences. When you wake up tomorrow morning, your brain will be cleaner than it was when you went to bed. Not completely clean. There's always some metabolic activity going on even when you're sleeping, but a lot cleaner. The load will be less. The harmful proteins that could one day cause neurodegenerative disease will be gone, stopped from building up, and kept below the level where they could be harmful. This is happening on its own, without you having to do anything. You don't have to worry about it, think about it, or do anything to make it happen. You only need to sleep. You just have to let go and trust in processes that have been around for billions of years and have been honed to perfection through generations of evolutionary selection. Your body knows what to do. Your brain knows how to get rid of things. All you have to do is make sure the room is quiet, the bed is comfortable, the lights are off, the temperature is right, and your mind is at ease. Then you can give in to the process. That knowledge is very comforting to me, at least. In a world where we're always being told to optimize, hack, improve, and control every part of our lives, where there's always another supplement to take, technique to master, or metric to track, it's nice to know that some things just work. There are things that happen that we don't understand or think about. The glymphatic system doesn't need you to tell it what to do or give it permission. It needs your sleep, but then it does everything else. Processes that you aren't aware of are taking care of you in a very real and physical way. Before we finish, I want to talk about how important it is to find and treat sleep disorders. This is a field where modern medicine can really help, but it doesn't happen very often because sleep problems are not diagnosed or treated enough. Obstructive sleep apnea, chronic insomnia, restless leg syndrome, and other sleep disorders affect millions of people and make it hard for the glymphatic system to work properly by changing the normal sleep architecture. Sleep apnea is something that needs special attention because it's both common and dangerous, and a lot of people who have it don't know it. During sleep apnea, your airway gets blocked over and over again during the night, sometimes as many as dozens of times an hour. You stop breathing. The amount of oxygen in your blood goes down. Your brain picks up on this and wakes you up just enough to start breathing again, but not always enough for you to be fully awake. This cycle keeps going, breaking up your sleep and keeping you from spending enough time in the deep stages where glymphatic clearance is highest. If you snore so loudly that it wakes up your partner, if you wake up gasping or choking, if you're too tired during the day even though you spend enough time in bed, or if your partner says you stop breathing while you sleep, these are all signs that you should see a doctor. A sleep study, which can often be done at home now instead of having to stay overnight in a sleep clinic, can tell for sure if you have sleep apnea. A CPAP machine, which stands for continuous positive airway pressure, is usually used to treat this. You wear a mask over your mouth and nose while you sleep. and the machine gently blows air to keep your airway open. It's not pretty. You have to get used to it. But getting better sleep can have a big impact on your life, and treating sleep apnea may have big effects on long-term brain health by letting the glymphatic system work properly again. This isn't just a guess. Studies have shown that untreated sleep apnea raises the risk of cognitive decline and dementia. On the other hand, treatment with CPAP seems to lower that risk. Chronic insomnia, which is when you have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep for months or years, also needs proper treatment instead of just giving up or relying on sleeping pills. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBTI for short, works very well. Most sleep medicine experts agree that it's the best way to treat chronic insomnia. It works by changing the thoughts, beliefs, and actions that keep you from sleeping. People who have trouble sleeping for a long time often become anxious about sleep itself, which makes the problem worse. They worry about not sleeping, which makes them even more stressed out, which makes it even harder to sleep. CBTI helps break that cycle in a number of ways, such as by controlling stimuli, limiting sleep, restructuring thoughts, and teaching relaxation. The success rate is high, and the benefits last even after treatment is over, unlike sleeping pills. Sleeping pills can help in some short-term situations, but they don't usually give you the same quality of deep sleep as natural sleep. They might make you pass out, but the sleep architecture is often off, with less time spent in the deeper stages. On the other hand, CBTI can really and truly improve the quality of your natural sleep for good. If you have trouble sleeping and have for months or years, please don't just accept it as a fact of life that can't be changed. There is help available. Get in touch with your doctor. Get a recommendation for a sleep expert or a therapist who specializes in CBTI. The benefits go far beyond just feeling more rested during the day, though that would be enough of a reason to do it. You're also helping your brain clean itself by getting rid of waste that could be harmful and keeping the environment around the cells so that neurons can work at their best. Let's take a minute to think about what we talked about in the last hour. We began with the basic discovery of the glymphatic system, which is a network of channels around blood vessels that carry cerebrospinal fluid away from the brain and spinal cord. This fluid carries away metabolic waste that builds up during the day. We looked at how important astrocytes and their aquaporin 4 channels are. These channels are like molecular locks that control the flow of fluid through brain tissue. We talked a lot about how sleep, especially deep slow-wave sleep and REM sleep, is when this cleaning system works best, when the channels are widest open and the flow is strongest. We studied how not getting enough sleep over a long period of time can cause the body to build up waste products, such as amyloid beta and tau proteins, which may be linked to Alzheimer's disease and other types of neurodegeneration. We took into account the many things that can hurt glymphatic function, such as aging, which is unavoidable but can be lessened, alcohol, which messes up sleep architecture even though it makes you feel sleepy, chronic stress and inflammation, which hurt the delicate structures that help clear waste, shift work or jet lag, which messes up circadian rhythms, and untreated sleep disorders, which break up sleep and stop deep restorative stages. We talked about the things that help glymphatic function, such as regular aerobic exercise, which makes blood vessels pulse more and improves sleep quality, good sleep hygiene, which makes conditions better for deep sleep, staying hydrated, cardiovascular health, a balanced gut microbiome, social and intellectual engagement, and stress management. We talked about how this could affect a number of neurological conditions, such as Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, traumatic brain injury, stroke, and maybe even mental illnesses that cause sleep problems and problems with getting rid of waste. We talked about the recent discovery of lymphatic vessels in the meninges, which goes against what textbooks have said for the past 100 years about the brain's immune privilege. We talked about the philosophical and almost spiritual aspects of cleaning up at night, like how our bodies naturally clean themselves when we go to sleep. And there has been a main point behind all of this, one that I hope has come through. You can make choices, you can control your life, and you can change the course of your life. Not total control. Biology, genetics, and chance all play a part, and life isn't always fair. But still, it gives you some control. The decisions you make about when and how long you sleep, whether you put sleep first or give it up for other things, how you deal with stress, how you move your body, and how you eat all have real measurable effects on your body. They have an effect on the glymphatic system. They have an effect on whether trash builds up or is removed. Over the years and decades, they may also affect whether you keep your cognitive function as you get older or suffer the terrible decline of dementia. If you haven't been sleeping well, or if your life makes it hard to make sleep a priority, that shouldn't make you feel guilty or anxious. People who are single parents and work more than one job, people who are taking care of sick family members, and people who have chronic pain or mental health problems that make it hard to sleep. You're doing the best you can with what you have, and that's all anyone can ask. But for those who can make changes, who have been treating sleep as something they don't need or can live without, who have been buying into the cultural idea that sleep is for the weak or that you can sleep when you're dead, this is a chance to think again. An invitation based on solid science, thorough research, and a clear picture of what happens in your brain while you sleep. Before we say goodbye tonight, I want to paint one last picture for you. Picture this. You could somehow shrink yourself down to the size of a cell and travel through your own brain while you slept. You'd be in a strange place, a thick forest of neurons and glial cells, with blood vessels that look like red rivers running through the tissue. As you slept more deeply, you would notice that the cells were starting to shrink a little, pulling back and making room, and then you'd see it start. The clear cerebrospinal fluid rushing in through the arteries, moving through wider channels, getting into tissue, swirling around cells, and picking up the day's waste. You could see the star-shaped bodies of the astrocytes and the delicate processes that wrapped around the vessels. Their aquaporin 4 channels would open to let the flow go through. You could see the dirty fluid, which was now carrying its load of molecular waste, starting to drain away through the veins. You could see the pulse of the heartbeat, which sends a wave of pressure that helps the flow. This rhythm goes on even when you don't notice it. And if you could speed up time and watch this happen every night, every year, and every decade, you'd see how good sleep keeps the brain clean, stops toxic proteins from building up, and keeps the environment that neurons need to work. And you'd see how not getting enough sleep over time causes waste to build up slowly but surely, until the burden becomes too much and function starts to decline. You'd know deep down why sleep isn't something you can skip, or cut back on without consequences. You don't have to make yourself smaller and go through brain tissue to get this. You know it now. You've spent the last hour learning about one of the most beautiful and important systems in your body. And that knowledge and understanding can help you make choices about how to live in the future. Not in a strict, worried, or sleep-obsessed way, but in a way that respects your biology and what your brain needs, and that recognizes the wisdom that has built up in your body over billions of years of evolution. I'd appreciate it if you shared this with others who might benefit if you found it useful and learned something important. If you want to keep going on these trips into human biology and physiology, think about signing up. There are so many systems we could look into together, and there are so many things going on that we don't know about, each one a small miracle of coordination and complexity. The cardiovascular system and how your heart changes to meet needs. The immune system and how well it can tell the difference between self and non-self. The endocrine system and the way hormones control what happens in your body. The vestibular system helps you keep your balance without even thinking about it. The microbiome and how it affects everything from mood to digestion. There are so many stories that need to be told and so many levels of understanding that need to be revealed. But now, tonight, it's time to let go. Your job is done. You have spent this hour learning, thinking, and dealing with difficult ideas. That's useful and important, but now it's time for something else. It's time to rest. It's time to clean. It's time for the glymphatic system to do its thing. You don't have anything else to do, anywhere to go, or anything to do. Just here, just now, just the slow fading of wakefulness into sleep. Your brain has been busy all day, taking in information, making choices, coordinating movement, and keeping you awake. That work, which is necessary and useful, has also made trash. There is molecular debris that needs to be cleaned up, and it will be for the next few hours while you sleep. The cerebrospinal fluid is ready to flow. The channels are getting ready to open. The astrocytes are ready with their aquaporin channels. The whole system is ready and waiting for the signal that sleep has started. When the sun comes up tomorrow morning, your alarm goes off, or you naturally wake up, you'll be cleaner than when you went to sleep. The amyloid beta will be gone, so plaques won't be able to form. The tau proteins will be removed so they can't get tangled. You won't feel foggy anymore because the lactate and adenosine will be washed away. Your brain will be maintained, serviced, and restored when you wake up to a new day. And you'll do it all over again. During the day, you'll collect trash, and at night you'll get rid of it. This is the basic rhythm of being a conscious being. That cycle, that rhythm, is very beautiful. All day and all night, doing things and resting, putting things together and taking them apart, being aware and not being aware. These rhythms, oscillations and cycles that never end are what life is all about. You are connected to the rotation of the earth, the cycle of light and dark, billions of years of evolutionary history, and every creature that sleeps on this planet. Get some sleep tonight. Get a lot of sleep. Let the lymphatic system do its thing. Have faith in the process. Have faith in what your body knows. Believe that you will wake up feeling refreshed and ready for whatever tomorrow brings. There will be cleaning. The trash will be picked up. Systems that don't need your conscious direction will take care of you. They work tirelessly in the background and have been improved over many generations to do exactly what they do. As your eyelids get heavier and your thoughts become less linear and more dreamlike, and the line between waking and sleeping blurs and finally disappears, know that you are being held by biology, evolution, and the complex systems that make up a person. The glymphatic system is all set. The astrocytes are on hold. Your brain will soon be filled with cerebrospinal fluid every night. You just have to let go. Now go to sleep. Cleaning will take care of itself. Sleep well.